Tim McMahon in particular was talking about the Pistons, and obviously, if you guys know Tim McMahon, knows the Dallas Mavericks inside and out. He was at the Pistons Mavericks game. I think he did have an opportunity to talk with people that are decision makers with the Detroit Pistons. I'm going to put a quote on the screen from the Hoop Collective podcast, and this is what he said. It says, quote, "I can tell you they're not looking at it as we have to be aggressive before the deadline. They're not going into the deadline with an aggressive mindset. They're going into it with an opportunistic mindset." Now, that just screams Trajan Langdon is still, preaching, we're not going to skip steps. We're going to stay patient. And we just talked about the Dennis Schroeder trade. Like, that wasn't an aggressive trade. That was an opportunistic trade. Because if you remember, the only reason why the Pistons got him was because it was this huge Jimmy Butler. I think it was like a 4 or 5 team trade. And he got rerouted to Detroit for like KJ Martin, Kenya Martin's son, in a second that they acquired from Philly. So basically a second round pick for Dennis Schroeder. That was a very opportunistic trade. And I think that just kind of speaks volume in the type of general manager and a president that Trajan Langdon is. He's not looking to be aggressive right now. I'm not saying that he'll never be aggressive, not saying that he won't make those big swings or those big trades, but everything that we've heard from him, whether it was at this Detroit Pistons media day in August, whether it was September, excuse me, whether it's been, podcast appearances with the Zach Lowe show when he was on Zach Lowe being asked about, or, are you going to be aggressive? What are you going to do with contract extensions? He's been very reserved. He's been very calculative. And I think that's the type of general manager that he is. He's just not going to make an impulse trade just to make a trade. He's just kind of look around, survey, seeing what this team needs. And I think he's still in evaluation mode, which I can understand given he has not drafted any of these guys outside of Ron Holland, Chaz Lanier, and Bobby Klittman. All of these guys are Troy Weaver draft picks, and understand that, they're guys that are under contract extensions right now. Like Jalen Duren, every time I read, like, the price keeps going up with the reporters. During the summer, it was 30 million. A couple of weeks ago, it was 38. Now, Jake Fisher had reported it's up to 40 million. He's under a contract extension that he will definitely be having conversations with the Pistons and Trajan this summer. And you also have Jaden Ivey. Now, obviously, Jaden Ivey, since coming back, and we'll get into him a little bit, he's looking for a new contract with the Detroit Pistons. His rookie deal is going to expire. So I think with the Pistons, they will make trades. I just think they're looking for deals that aren't going to break the bank, and they'll be cost-effective moves. And that's been something that I think we can look at Trajan since he's come in. Like, if you look at his very first trade when he took over, he traded away Quentin Grimes and got 3 seconds for taking on a Tim Hardaway Jr.'s contract. And, at the time, I think a lot of Pistons fans were upset that we gave up Quentin Grimes, but Tim Hardaway Jr. was a very good piece for this team last year, was a veteran leader, was a positive voice in the locker room, and had some moments last year for the Pistons, hit some really clutch shots in the playoffs last year against the New York Knicks in the first round. But, like, I think those are the type of moves that Trajan and this front office are looking at. They're looking at moves where maybe they can, stockpile some more future draft capital, maybe take on a contract, use their trade exception that they got in the Dennis Schroeder trade. If you guys do remember, it was a sign and trade with the Kings. So you have around $14 million of trade exception that you can use at this deadline. I mean, those are the type of moves that I look at with him. I mean, you could look at his free agency, his first free agency with the Pistons. You sign Malik Beasley to a 1-year deal for $6 million. That was a very, short-term, cost-effective move. You picked Paul Reed off of waivers because Philly couldn't afford to keep him. Paul Reed has been an excellent third edition center to this team. There's been moments where he doesn't play for weeks. There's been moments during the injury bug that we had early on in the season, especially the game. I think it was against the Bulls where he had a career night as a starting center. Um, and like you kind of just look at the type of players that he's looking to target. So I think it'll be interesting to see what the Pistons do, decide on the trade deadline, what positions they're looking for. Obviously, I've had my opinions on like what I think this team should address at the deadline, and that's more 3-point shooting, more of a scoring punch off the bench. Not to say that I don't think Karis LeVert couldn't be that. It's just way too inconsistent, I think, for me. There'll be nights where, like last night, like he was making shots against Utah, but he had a costly turnover in the fourth quarter trying to pass it to Cade. There's been nights where he goes like 0 for 8 and doesn't score whatsoever. I think if I'm the Pistons and I'm Trajan Langdon, I'm definitely looking at players that can make 3-point shots at a consistent level. I'm looking for more playmaking because I think right now having Karras run your second unit, Jaden Ivey is still kind of like dealing with the minute restrictions, and we'll get into him in the next segment. But I think if I'm the Pistons, I'm definitely looking at more 3-point shooting, possibly some playmaking, and if the opportunity does present himself, maybe you do look at acquiring a guy that could take a little bit of off the scoring load from Cade Cunningham. You never know who's going to become available over these next couple of weeks with this trade deadline. Now, I know I just kind of talked about how the Pistons are looking to make cost-effective moves, and there could be some players out there that could definitely be a consistent scorer. Like the first player that just popped in my head, and he plays for the Washington Wizards, is CJ McCollum. Like, I don't know what Washington is really looking to do. Obviously, they're a rebuilding team. Don't really know what CJ wants to do in his career. If he's happy of just kind of being that vet for young guys, or does CJ want to, kind of compete in the playoffs, or compete for a championship? I know he's been linked to the LA Clippers, which I think would just be a disaster. I think they have enough old vets over there. Obviously, Bradley Beal's out for the season. They have James Harden, but hey, maybe CJ McCollum does become available. I think he's a guy that could definitely help this team. But just a name that I'm just floating out there. I'm sure there are some other scoring punches that could be cost effective, where you don't really have to, dip into your asset pool in terms of draft capital too much, or young players, because you want to see what these young core players in Cade Cunningham, Jade Ivey, Sir Thompson, Ron Holland, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren can do this season. Obviously, they're the number one seed in the Eastern Conference right now, sitting at 24-7 the first 31 games. But it'll be interesting to see what Trajan Langdon and this front office does look to do and be opportunistic in this trade deadline and their approach to the trade deadline.